Unfortunately, I don't have any video of That's My Chord, the great harmony game we played with the students due to some technological difficulties during my teaching. I will, however, have some video footage up as soon as I can. Um, however, the game went extraordinarily well. It was probably the highlight of the lesson. The students had an obvious and blatant grasp on the concepts that were discussed in the groups, as well as the short review session we had before playing That's My Chord. Um, the students absolutely loved the game. We had seen with a lesson that Derek had done with them regarding note names that they were very into the competitive side of team games like this. So for a list of the rules, you can see the lesson plan below. But basically, what we did was lay out a keyboard mat that Derek had that was only one octave, and the students were in groups of 3 or 4, and they could ring in with the tambourine their answers. One group would create a triad in C major, and the group that rang in would have to say what number chord it was and the notes in the chord for 1 point each, in which the group on the keyboard would respond, "That's my chord," and gain an additional point. Um, Another team, if the answering team got a question wrong, could ring in and steal the question for a point for their team. Also, if the team that was on the keyboard did not construct a true chord in C major, true triad chord in C major, the group that ring in had the opportunity to get an additional third point by fixing the chord that was on the keyboard at the moment. This group, like I said, very advanced, caught on to the concepts very quickly, and we were actually able to start getting into inversions with them. There were some teams that started thinking, all right, well, instead of doing a one chord C E G, let's put one person on the C, one person on the C above it, and then we'll have two people on G and E. And so we had to revamp the words the rules of the game a little bit, which was fun and interesting. But the students got very competitive with it, and also another adaptation we made to the game to challenge the students more was once again we went over the functions of uh, dominant, tonic, and predominance with them. And for an additional 2 points, an answering team could describe the function of the chord that was being provided within the context of C major. For example, if a group had created a G major chord on the keyboard, the group could ring in, say it was a G major chord, so it was the chord 5 in the progressions. It had the tones G, B, D, and that it was used as a dominant, and they could get 3 points. And in the end, the game ended up getting very competitive, and we played it for another class period too as well. The students enjoyed it, and they seemed to learn and take a lot out of it, and I think it really helped in the next step, which was the compositional phase. The third and final day of us teaching our harmony lesson also went very well. The students were split into groups of 3 or 4 students per group, and they were tasked with creating an 8-measure piece using any Orff instruments in the room. Most of them chose the xylophones because it's easier to make chord structures on them. And the groups came up with some really interesting things. They needed a little bit instruction on how to begin, similar to the melody lesson we did with the same students. I tried giving them the two suggested options of either coming up with a chord progression and then trying to hum a melody similar to what they did in that melody lesson, or the opposite, coming up with the melody and trying to fit chords to it. Most of the groups decided to go with the harmony then melody route, while others, especially some of the instrumentalists that are in the class, preferred to write the melody and then set harmony to it. The majority of the class saw that if they created the harmony first, that kind of constricted their melody and allowed them to have some kind of structure in their creation of their melody. Once they came to the conscientization point of that, and also to the point that they didn't have to use those specific three notes that made up the 1-4-5-2-6 triad. Their creative side started to come through, and we started to get some really interesting compositions going. There were some questions on the worksheet. Perhaps we could have formatted it a little better, just because they weren't really quite sure where to put the rhythm notation, where to put the melody, and where to write the harmonic structure. But after a couple of clarifying questions, that was dealt with. I chose this clip to show because this was a group that I was helping out that really had a good understanding. They were telling me everything that they were doing using the correct vocab. They were clearly working well as a team. They had created a melody that fit their harmony. They were using really complex rhythms for their harmony, actually, which they ran into a problem because they weren't sure if what they were making were triplets or an eighth and 2/16 and a rest. So they had to differentiate between the two, which took them a little while, but I think it was worth it, and their rhythmic value kind of was improved because of that dilemma. But in this clip, that group I actually use in order to clarify instruction for another group who was trying but really wasn't quite getting what they were supposed to be doing in regards to the rhythm, harmony, and melody, and how they were supposed to interrelate in their composition. The group that was asking was also a student short. They were a group of three, but one of the students is the student that has Asperger's syndrome, so she was in and out of the classroom with her aide. So so there were really two and a sometimes three group, whereas other groups were four. So they came to me with the question, and I turned around and had this group that I was working with explain it, and that actually worked probably better than having myself or one of the three other teachers explain it for him again. The chords, you're going to write down the chords on here, and then all the rhythm for the chords is going to be right here. And then this line is for the melody. But the way you're doing it with the harmony verse is this hard one. That gives you what notes you can use. For example, if you have a 1-4 person assuming, so you know that in your melody, you're most likely going to be using the notes C, and G notes. Look at that. I didn't mention this. Maggie, can you play the chords and just have the rhythm? So down here she would put the number of chords, and up here she would like tick it to them. This is for a melody. Once you come up with the harmony. Well, there you have some of the clips from this lesson. Like I said, it was very successful. I would definitely think about doing this lesson again, even with a group of 8th graders that perhaps weren't so advanced as Derek's class this marking period. Maybe scale down on the games, but another aspect of this lesson that I really like is it's very, very easily adaptable to any 8th grade classroom. It can even be adapted to, say, a freshman class or sophomore class, high school lesson plan, or even a 7th grade lesson plan, depending on the curriculum and the incoming knowledge that comes with the students. This lesson plan served its purpose. I think it met all of its objectives and the focusing question that's detailed in the lesson plan. And I think there's a lot of room to really dwell into each individual aspect of this lesson plan if given enough time. But I think as it stands right now, this is a perfect lesson for the general music classroom where you have a limited amount of time with a group of students that you may not see again. And especially with this 8th grade class that they may never take a music class again because this is the last time they will be forced in a music class rather than taking it as an elective in high school. So overall, I think the lesson went very well, and feel free to take a look at the lesson plan and as well as the two worksheets down below. And thank you for watching.